Okay, this is a test run here, a practice section. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello, honesty. No sound, no picture, no nothing. Yeah, I'm working on my connection here. Anyways, I'm just going through another boring study for the haplogroups because I got to refresh myself to have a discussion with David Neff in a week or so. Maybe on Modern Day, maybe on some other channel. Yeah. All right. So it's working now. I'll just go ahead and try to see if I can present here. Gotta share screen. I got kind of kicked off of my own broadcast here. So I have to set everything up again. See what happens here. Okay, so I'll go over to here and go to the world map. Okay, so this is of course, the Y chromosome. And the question will be whether or not these haplogroups have anything to do with the ancient civilizations as recorded in the Bible. Because we remember the Elamites. We remember studying the Bible about the Elamites, the Arameans, and the Assyrians, the Babylonians, of course. So the question will be whether or not I can accurately identify each of the ancient civilizations. So what I need to show is that, yes, Elam was the grandson of Noah, the son of Shem. Elam today is recognized as having the H paternal Y chromosome. Now, this L paternal Y chromosome would not be Elam. The reason being is that that's a Greek Y chromosome. That's a Japhetic Y chromosome of the nations, of the Table of Nations. So since it's Japhethite and not Semitic, that counts it out as being the Elamite Y chromosome. Same thing with the T over here. This is another Greek paternal Y chromosome. So it counts that one out. This one here is Gomer, or his son Ashkenaz, R1A. That's another Japhethite Y chromosome, so that counts them out. So the only one Elam can possibly be would be this H Semitic paternal Y chromosome, which is also found up here in Europe as the Gypsy population, which is incidentally is about 40% Elamite and about 30% Judaic. So they're not only are they Elamites, but they're Jews too. They have a history as being Jewish too. At least this population up here of Gypsy or whatever they're called. So I need to prove through the process of elimination, I need to demonstrate each of the Y chromosomes of each of the grandsons of Noah. Now, this one here, the Elamite Y chromosome is a given, basically. It's an H paternal Y chromosome. It can't be anybody else. There's no other Semitic Y chromosome in the area other than the Judaic J2, M172. This M172 is probably not only Judaic, but it's probably Davidic, because there's other J2s that are smaller populations, but the large population is the M172. It's probably David and Solomon, his direct descendants. Anybody with a J2, M172, probably direct descendants of David, King David himself. So, and then there's J1 can be either Arabic or it could be Levite too, because the Aaronic Y chromosome is a J1. So that's another given, basically. So we know that's Semitic. And since it's the descendants of Aaron, or the tribe of Levi, then we know that's Israelite. That's an Israelite paternal Y chromosome. But then again, some of the J1s are Arabic as well as possibly just basic Hebrews in the area. Okay, so we have a given. This is basically a given. J2 is a given, Judaic. Every population, every Jewish population has this J2 in their population. That's the largest haplogroup in the Judaic population. It's Semitic, of course, descendant of Arphaxad or Arpachshad. So these are givens. J2 is Judaic. H is Elamite. J1 is either Israelite or Arabic. And here's another given. Cushite. Cush is one of the grandsons of Noah. The same as Elam. Elam is a grandson of Noah. Cush is a grandson of Noah. And his name is here. So not only do we have Elam, the actual name of Elam in this genetic population, we have the actual name of Cush, which is a given. So we know the descendants of Cush are V32, E3V32. See, they used to name it with these, but it was too confusing, so they had to identify it separately like this because it is a main population descended from Cush, Cushite population. As well as, of course, the Egyptian, we know what the name of the Egyptian is. It's Mitzrayim, V12. We have M81 is the Berbers, which is North African, original North Africans. So that would be the North Africans were descendants of Put. So those are given. So we have, and Canaan is over in this area, probably the M123. This is the M81. Canaanites are M123. Egyptian Mitzrayim V12. Cushite V32. So we have all the Hamites now. We have a couple of Semitic tribes or ancient civilizations. And of course, let me see. The G would be Assyrian. I can't really show that it's Assyrian right here, but they have, of course, the Assyrians were in this area here. And there's other maps that show Assyrians in this area. But that's Semitic. That would be a Semitic population. The other Semitic population would be the Arameans and the Lydians, which I've assigned F and F2. And as far as the Semitic population, that's it. It's just the Arameans, the Lydians, the Assyrians, the Elamites, and number 5 is the descendants of Arpachshad and Abraham. Okay, and notice how they got the I and the J together here. The I is closely associated with Israel as well. And that is also Semitic. In other words, they're descendants of Arpachshad, Arphaxad. So, if I can show it, yeah, here. You have the Hamitic lines, which are E, A, B, C, and D. We have the Semitic lines, which are F, G, H, I, and J. We have the Japhethites, which are K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, and T. Basically. Now, this is, if somebody can correct me on any of this, I'll be happy to look into it and see if I can be corrected on it. But so far, the F2 is Semitic, it's Aramean and Lydian. The K is Japhethite, which is Tubal, but I have to get into that. I have to explain that a little bit. So those are the Semitic tribes or ancient civilizations, the Semitic Y chromosomes. And I won't be able to show it too well on this map, but on some of the other maps I can show it. But I just want to get through this map first. So we have the Hamitic civilizations are defined as the North Africans, Egyptians, and Cushites. And of course, Egyptians have divisions too. They went up to this, one of the sons of Mitzrayim went up to this island here and later became Philistines. And the Philistines, I guess they mixed in with maybe Canaanites or something and became the Philistines, which fought against David. So now we have the nations, the northern nations, which are all Japhethite. I mentioned two of them already. I haven't proved it yet, but it would be the L and the T, which are the Greeks, which came to India with Alexander the Great, who had fun riding elephants. And that's why the Greek haplogroups, which are Japhethite, are in India. Of course, R1A is Ashkenaz. That's from Gomer. That's Japhethite as well. So of the Japhethites, we have again the R1A, which is Ashkenaz in this area. We have Q up here. This Q is because Madai went to this area as well. So Madai Q is up in this area here up north, and it's also in this area closer to the Black Sea as well. So it's up here and down here. They kind of got split, probably with all the invasions going through here or whatever. But that's the Eurasians, the Japhethite nations or ancient civilizations would be categorized as Eurasians because they're all the same family, which is also the same family as the Neanderthals. So anybody that's Eurasian will have and does have more Neanderthal DNA because Neanderthals were Japhethite. I'm not sure which ones they were yet. I don't know if it was Tubal. Tubal settled in Italy, and his haplogroup is found in Italy as well. But these came later. This I1, of course, came later. This I2 came later. Went up into the area of Europe and the nations. I2 over here, even J2 over here. And I2 and J2, of course, which is Israel and Judah. But once I began assigning the haplogroups to the various ancient civilizations, it just becomes a process of elimination, whichever makes the most sense as to who is who. So the haplogroups in the Jewish populations are the Assyrians, which is the G, and the Q, which is Madai, which would be the Medes and the Assyrians, as well as possibly some Arameans. But there are, in the Jewish population, it's common to have the G, the Q, as well as some E, the E as well. Okay, what got me started with assigning the haplogroups, of course, I came here and saw Elamo Dravidian and the Dravidian with the H, and that was a given. But what got me started was this CY chromosome here, this paternal CY chromosome, which is not Semitic and it's not Eurasian. So I'm trying to think of how or who this might be, or how this got in this area, the C and the D as well, but especially the C. How did it get into this area of Asia? So I was thinking, well, let me think of the Sumerians. We know about Nimrod, right? So I said, well, who's Nimrod? So I went and checked, and the father of Nimrod is Cush. So Cush is the father of Nimrod, but Nimrod never went to Africa because he was the king in the land of Shinar. He was basically king of the whole world at the time. When everybody spread out, they basically spread out in different directions and left him there in the land of Mesopotamia, Ur of the Chaldees, in the land of Shinar, where Abraham also was born or was raised with his father. But Nimrod, of course, is Hamitic, and as being king of the land of Shinar, Nimrod would have had a very large family, what they would call the house of David. I mean the house of Nimrod, just like the house of David. Just like David had a house of David, which turns out to be the J2M172, would be the house of David, all Y chromosomes from David, from David's lineage, and Solomon as well. Not only David, but Solomon as well. Same Y chromosome. Nimrod would have also had the house of Nimrod, which is actually recorded as the house of Nimrod in the book of Jasher. And they are a known population that was in this area. And then, of course, that explains this population of Hamitic Y chromosome in Asia, because it's here in this area as well. And of course, here is not too far, but they just kept migrating east all the way north to America, south to the Pacific, and south to Australia. The CY chromosome, all descendants of Nimrod. So that also explains why, of course, the Olmecs, which were like in this area here somewhere, the Olmecs of Central America, they had features resembling Polynesians, because, of course, the Polynesians have the same ancestor, Nimrod, with the same, Asian or Eurasian mixture, basically. So you have the same features, similar features, because they have the same ancestor with the mix, which is a mixture of Hamitic population and or Kushite population actually, and the Q, which is Eurasian. So that's the reason for the similarity there. We have the C3 here in South America, of course, the Quichuas and the Wayus and the Waoranis. These are the infamous Auca Indians that killed the 5 missionaries. They have the CY chromosome from Nimrod. And I was raised right here in this area in the Amazon. Okay. So, and we also have the Dna with the C3 as well, Descendants of Nimrod. So that explains a lot that people couldn't understand. The anthropologists and stuff, they couldn't understand why people in Central America, or the Olmec statues in Central America, appeared to be Polynesian. They looked Polynesian or similar to Polynesians because they, of course, they have the same ancestor, the CY chromosome, Melanesia, Polynesia, Micronesia, and Austronesia too, somewhere. See, Austronesia is more, there's C here too as well, but Taiwan, Philippines, okay. Okay, and the K is Eurasian, which is, of course, tubal, but I haven't really shown how it's tubal, but I'm quite sure that the K is descendants of tubal through the process of elimination as well. Because the largest population here in the world, the largest haplogroup in the world is the O paternal Y chromosome in Asia, which is Korea, China, Japan, part of Japan, and throughout the Pacific Islands as well, to a certain extent. And everything starts making sense when you start understanding who these people are. Things start to make sense. Even some of the mitochondrial maternal lineages start making more sense, because not only is there Middle Eastern mitochondrial lineages, but there is a Semitic, Asiatic mitochondrial lineage as well, which would be the A haplogroup in America, would be the Asiatic. And then there's the B mitochondrial DNA, which is not on this map, by the way, of course. But the B mitochondrial haplogroup is from the Middle Eastern lineage that is found all the way in the Philippines, and even all the way in the Pacific Islands, and even all the way to America. But it's not shown on this map because this is not a map of mitochondrial lineage. But that's about it, except that there's 2 large groups here. Of course, we know from history we know that Meshach went north, one of the sons of Japheth. So that would be Meshach would be the Eurasian in the north. That is not Gomer. It's not Greek. It's not Japheth, R1b. It's not Madai, which is the Q. Of course, the Q is way up here because the Q was in Europe. I mean, Madai was in Europe. Madai was in Europe as well as Gomer. So Madai not only is Madai of the Medes, which is from this area here, the Q, this area here, the Q here, this would be the area of the Medes, right? This area here, that's where the Medes and Persians were, the Medes and the Persians. So not only was it in this area, they also went to Europe too, and so their Y chromosome is found in Europe as well, as we just saw. A lot of this starts making sense as soon as you start identifying people, it starts making a lot more sense. And that's what I need to show David Neff and the whole community, as well as believers, because they need to know and understand that the Table of Nations are the grandsons and great-grandsons of Noah, and that they can be identified from the populations today by way of their paternal Y chromosome haplogroup. So Meshach went north, and Magog also went north, but Magog circled around down here to the south, more to the south, and that would be the OY chromosome. So Magog is the OY chromosome. Meshach is the NY chromosome. Tubal was in Italy, and it has the KY chromosome, which we can find. But the thing is, you have to get started. Once you get started, you can understand what these haplogroups are. Now, the only thing is that these are all Eurasian. This P, Q, and R, it's all Eurasian. So basically, when you're starting out with the 7 sons of Japheth, they basically all have the same Y chromosome to begin with, because they're all sons of Japheth. They inherited the same Y chromosome. It's their descendants that diversify into different family trees. So we know from their descendants where the descendants migrated to and went. We know we can determine that. We can determine which paternal haplogroup of each of the sons of Japheth have, which are seven sons of Japheth. Japheth had a lot of sons. So this PQR here is, or can be, it's a little bit confusing to people who study DNA because of the similarities, because it's all Eurasian, it's all very close together and similar. So even though Q would be identified as Madai, the R is clearly Gomer, because Gomer went to Europe, and the Medes, which are this area, also went to Europe, so they're up in this area, right there, and right down here as well. But Gomer is clearly in Europe by way of his sons Ashkenaz and Japheth, and there's an R2 here somewhere. If it shows up here on this chart, there's an R2, which would be Togarma. might not be showing up here. But anyways, once we understand that the Europeans are Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah, and we understand that Q is Madai of the Medes in this area. Of course, Elam of this area is the Elamites. Then we can, through the process of elimination, determine Meshech, who went north, and Magog, who is the largest population, because when people are identified, they're usually very often identified by way of their population. So Magog would be the largest population. Meshech would be a large population, and Tubal would be the other population as listed. So there you have it. It's Magog, Meshech, Tubal. That's three sons of Japheth. We have Gomer is 4, Madai is 5, then 6 and 7 are the Greeks, which you can't see here in this map, but the Greeks are the L and the T that Alexander took to India when he went to ride elephants in India. So that's the 7 sons of Japheth right there. They're all there. Now they try to explain the migrations and this and that and the other thing, but they're having a hard time understanding this stuff, especially when they're finding Denisovans. They can't figure out why Denisovans are Hamitic and Japhethite at the same time, but it's easily explained because they found a population here way up north. In a cave, the Denisova cave, which is like north of China, basically, way up here. Look at this area. This is Hamitic, Mongolic, Hamitic, paternal Y chromosome. So when they went to go see, well, who has the most Denisovan DNA, turns out, guess who has most Denisovan DNA? It's the M and the S down here. And the M and the S is closely associated with the K, which I believe the M and the S are the same family as K, which is Tubal, because of the Denisovan population. These people have the most Denisovan DNA, as well as the K in his area. So not only can I identify the Denisovan as being Hamitic from being in this area, because the M and S it's not Hamitic, neither is the K, but the C and the D are. The D and the C are Hamitic. And so that means that the Denisovans are a mixture of Japhethite and Hamitic, autosomally. And that's the reason why I have the M and the S belonging to the K. Even though they were separated a long time ago and they have a lot of genetic distance between them, between the separation, they're still probably the same family. And because these would be the only populations that weren't or aren't identified if they don't belong to the K lineage. And since they're so close together, it's kind of hard to claim, even though they are separated way back a long time ago. It's kind of hard to say they don't belong to the same family tree, considering how close they are to each other and how close they are to the K population too, because this is all K. This is a K population as well. So besides that, the P here, the P is the only one which would be not identified as anybody, but it's the you could basically say P. You'd probably say that P would be Japheth. You know, if you want to assign a Y chromosome to Japheth, it would be P, and or the same thing as Q, which is all the same thing anyway, because Japheth's Y chromosome and the Y chromosome of his sons is the same Y chromosome to begin with. So that's the reason for that. So this P population is probably the same thing as the Q population. The Q population is not the same as the R because the R is clearly Gomer, with Ashkenaz over here and Riphath over here. So the R, Europeans, is clearly Gomer, because Gomer was in Europe. So it's not R, so the P can't be R, and the Q can't be R either, even though they sometimes put them on the same lineage. The reason being is because the farther back you go, there's really not that much difference between the lineages. It's the same family tree lineage anyway. So that would be, the P would be the only one that wouldn't be identified, but that then again, he is identified, probably the same thing as the Q, probably Madai, which is in this area as well. So the Q is here, which is Japhethite, and basically it's the Japhethite that's here is Q. So the P is probably Q. Anyway, other than that, the other ones that wouldn't be identified would be the A and the B, which are, you know, if we looked into it, they probably branched off from the Kushite family tree anyway. So then that means everybody's accounted for. There's nobody here that's not accounted for, because I identified 7 sons of Japheth. We didn't see it yet clearly, but the 5 sons of Shem and the 4 sons of Ham. So, as now that I'm being very boring and ignoring everybody, I guess. So let me see what we got here. Okay, so we got Cheryl here. Hey, Jungle. I will listen to this later. Hi, honesty. Okay. Secret. Screen share is working. Sounds good. Okay. All right. That's good. And this is a practice session anyway. This is just for practice for me. I just figured since I haven't done a broadcast recently that I'll just go ahead and practice live, even if it's very boring. But anyway, so far so good, maybe. Now let's look at some of these other maps here. So let me see, what do we got here? I'll just go to this one, see if this works. Yes, I got the next map here. Okay. This is a very good map here. This is a good map because if I can zoom in, no, I can't. Somehow it's not working on this time. But anyways, this let me see. No, there's something. Let me see if I can do this differently here. Let me go here. Let me try it this way. Wow. Anyway, it's a good map. I can't get it to open up here right now for some reason, but it has a lot of information here. It's a very good map. Of course, here we have Javan, which is the Greek T, Y haplogroup, and we have Tiraz, which you can hardly see Tiraz here, but it's Tiraz is the Thracians. This is the area of Thracians. So the ancestor of the Thracians is clearly Tiraz, because that's where Tiraz settled, and you can see it here right on the map. Tiraz is in the area of the Thracians, known ancient civilization of Thracians. Javan is the known ancient civilization of the Sea People, and his sons are Tarshish, Elisha, Kittim, and Dodanim. These are the sons of Javan. See the blue arrows? Of course, there was a Tarshish over here too, but I guess the Tarshish went all the way to Spain. But it's the Sea People, because sometimes they'll have a place here, like in Anatolia, Asia Minor, and then they'll move somewhere else and bring the name with them, because that's a very common thing to do. Okay, here we can see as well Mitzrayim, of course, is the founder of Egypt. You can see here Egypt, Mitzrayim. His sons, Naphtali, Lehabim, which later became Libya. Lehabim, Libya, or Ludim became Libya. Kashulim and Anarim, or Nim. And then there's the Captorim is the Isle of Captor here. They settled up here, and then I guess they were kicked out of here. They left here, they went over and became Philistines from the Isle of Captorim, which is, this is Crete, this is the other island. See, Captorim became the Philistines, and I guess they joined up with Canaan. Canaan is over here, of course. And of course, this whole area was controlled by Egypt until the children of Israel left Egypt, and then Egypt lost control of this area. But the Canaanites were still in this area, which is a whole bunch of tribes of the Canaanites, which are over here. The Arvadites, the Zamorites, the Archetytes, the Hivites, the Jebusites, the Amorites. These are all people that were fighting against Israel as they moved into the land of Canaan. Okay, but of course, Israel is the nation that God made, and God chose Zion, Jerusalem, as his city, which is over here somewhere. No, it's over here, Jerusalem. And that's the land that God chose for himself to make a name, make his name known in the world. And of course, it's because of Israel that we have somewhat civilized nations today, basically, because they were all horrible people. All these people, if you read ancient history, they were just horrible people. They were just the worst. All of them. They were all bad. The Assyrians, the Arameans, Elamites, the Medes, Madai, Togarma, Gomer. See, Gomer went up here. See, Ashkenaz up here in Europe. They went up through this way over into Europe. Riphath went to southern Europe. Where's Riphath? It's somewhere around here. Might not be. Here's Riphath right here. Can't see it very well. Magog is here, but Magog and Meshach, they went north, and they eventually went out that way. But see, they don't really know where Magog and Meshach went. Meshach went north. That's where the NY chromosome is. Magog is the OY chromosome. So he went north and this way. He went back down that way. Probably up around the Caspian Sea like that. Because that's what it seems. It seems because the historical records say that the nations, the sons of Japheth, moved north. So they moved north and then spread out from there. So the Gomer went north, and Ashkenaz went into Europe. Of course, Tubal. Here's Tubal. Tubal settled in Italy. So the KY chromosome is found in Italy. To this day, 8% of the population is still Tubal, K, and everybody else is from the outside. They're intruders from the outside. It's either J2 or Gomer, Riphath. Everybody else is from the outside. But Tubal is 8% of the population in central Italy today. Central Italy, 8% of the population is still Tubal. And of course, less up here and less down here. But 8% of the population today is still significant because that's the original population of Italy. So Madai, of course, is this area here. It would be the Medes, Media. It's a very good map here. And then it shows also the migration of the descendants of Arpachshad, some of the Iberus and stuff, Arameans or the Semitic tribes and civilizations, etc. Okay. This lists all the names, of course. Remember, Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, Dodanim. Gomers, Ashkenaz, Riphath, Togarma, got Magog, Madai, Tubal, Meshach, Tiraz. Tiraz is the father of Thracians, Thrace, Tiraz, and Javan, of course, is the Greek Sea people. So this is the Greek Sea people. This is the Greek mainland Thracians. Then we have Ham, Cush, Nimrod, Havilah. These are all in the Arabian Peninsula and Africa, of course. Same. Mitzrayim, these are all the ones in Egypt. All the sons in Egypt. Some of them become Libya. Or Lehabim. I don't know if it's Lehabim or Ludim. Became Libya. Or, of course, a mixture probably. Captorine eventually became the Philistines. Canaan, all the Canaanites, Girgashites, Hittites, Arkazites, Zionites, Arvadites. And then we have the Semitic populations, which is Elamites, Assyrians, Asher. Remember the god of the Assyrians is Asher. The reason why Asher is the god of the Assyrians because Asher is the progenitor of the Assyrians. It kind of makes sense, right? Arphaxad is the father of the Iberus, which is all these are Iberus here, Joktan. And Peleg, Reu, Serug, Terah. Terah is the father of Abraham, the idol maker for Nimrod. So this guy here, Terah, was the idol maker for Nimrod. Nimrod was in the land of Shinar, Mesopotamia. When Cush and his other sons went to Africa, Nimrod remained in the land of Shinar with Abraham's father Terah, who was the idol maker, and Abraham called them out on their idolatry, got into trouble for it. He basically had to run and was possibly raised by Shem, and learned the ways of God from Shem, according to certain traditions or whatever. Of course, you got the Arameans, Hul, Uz, another Meshach, and Gether. Lud is the Lydians. Arpachshad is the line of Abram, and the Eberus. So this line here would be I and J. So everything I and J is a descendant of Arpachshad. It could be an Eberu, it could be Arabic, it could be Abraham, descendants, Israel. It's all I and the J. Asher, of course, is G. Elam is H. Lud would be the F2. Aram is just the F, because there's two lines of F. They're totally separate from each other. So one of them is F2, the other one is F. And until somebody can get some more information, that's the way it stands for right now. There's another map basically showing all of the same things. Tiraz, Javin, Elisha, Kittim, Dodanim. You have the Ludim. Put would be like the North Africans. These are Egyptians, Mitzrayim. It's all of the same people, basically. Remember, Japheth went north. Japheth is in Europe. See, Japheth in Europe. Actually, Gomer is in Europe. Magog, Meshach, Tubal. Tubal went that way. And he went east as well, of course. Magog went east. Meshach went north. Magog probably went north too, and then turned back around the Caspian Sea and went east. Of course, we have Nubia. Cush is down here, with all the sons of Cush down here. And we have Babel up here, Nimrod up here. So Nimrod remained in Mesopotamia. He's the one, of course, that tried to build the Tower of Babel, and that's when probably the continents broke apart, shook everybody up. They isolated into family groups, began speaking their own languages, all by the hand of God, and that's when they started spreading out. So Nimrod remained king in the land of Shinar, as mentioned, with Terah, Abraham's father. And, of course, Nimrod is a Cushite with a Hamitic paternal Y chromosome. Okay. Anyway. So we got the 1,000 genomes, mitochondrial phylogeny. Okay. We have the L, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's basically just all L. They remained exclusively in Africa for most of ancient civilization. Of course, this is the mitochondrial maternal line. This would be the Japhethite mitochondrial maternal line. These are all Asian, or Eurasian, but most of this is in Asia because it seems like Shem had more daughters than Japheth did, because this would be the daughters of Japheth. Of course, these are the daughters of Ham, and these are the daughters of Shem. So what happened was, this map is not going to show very well, but there's an A line and a B line which are separate from each other. They're categorized as N. The N would be the more Asiatic Semitic lines, possibly the same origin, as you can see here, the N. So this could be the lineages that came from the wife of Madai, when Madai asked Shem to marry one of his daughters, and this became the Asiatic line. Now this is the more Semitic lines, or the more Middle Eastern Semitic lines would be these here. This is more European Semitic mitochondrial DNA, or it's Middle Eastern as well, but this is all Middle Eastern. This would be more Asiatic. This B is found in America, and this A is found in America. The C and the D is found in America. They just started naming them A, B, C, and D, and that's why they're all mixed up, because they didn't know what they were looking at, I guess, very much. So the Y chromosome, if you notice here, there's something missing in this Hamitic family tree. We see, of course, A, B, C, D, and E. But notice this is E1, and E2, and C and D. Now, I don't know if one of these, I think they had to relabel as E3. I'm not sure which one it is, but this E3, of course, goes all the way back to the beginning, because E3, the Cush, is the father of the C and the D. So remember, keeping in mind that the farther back you go, the more Y chromosome is the same Y chromosome to begin with. So that's the Hamitic family tree, or lineage, and we have the Semitic lineage, which is the Assyrian G, the F2 Lydians, the Elamite H, and the F Aramean. So we got the Arameans and the Lydians. I don't know which is which, but they're totally separate here. So I designated, since they're totally separate from each other, I have them designated as being two different lineages, Aramean and Lydian, Elamite and Assyrian. And of course, the I and the J would be descendants of Arphaxad, which includes probably the Hebrews, Arabic, Israel. It's all one lineage going back to Arphaxad. Okay. Now, the European or the Eurasians are all these here. These are all the Eurasians. Of course, the T and the L are the Greeks. Remember, the K, the M, and the S are all one family tree. The Q, they have it on the same family tree as the R. And of course, the P would be here. But the P is probably Japheth. Well, the line of Japheth, but probably the descendants of Q. So the P are probably the descendants of Q, because the Q is not the R, because the R is Gomer, the Q is the Medes, the P is probably Q. So then there's the N, which is Meshech, totally separate, right? They have it connected here, but it's really totally separate. And because the farther back you go, it's the same Y chromosome anyway. So you have the O, it's Magog, Meshech. We have the T of Javan, the L of Tiraz. We have the K of Tubal, the Q of Madai, the Medes, and the R of Gomer. That's 7 sons. It'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 sons of Japheth. And 5 sons of Shem, 4 sons of Ham. Of course, the 4 sons of Ham you can't really see on here. It's the M81, the V12, the V32, and the M123 are the original lineages, or the original population. Of course, then the V32, I think it has an M52 or something. But anyways, I got to check which would probably be the original lineage, which would be Ham, or Ham himself, from where all the other ones came from. Okay, this is the map that I had to check when I found out that Tubal settled in Italy. I had to go to the map of Italy and see if the K was in Italy. And you can see here the K is 8% of the population of Italy. This J2 is Davidic, that's an outsider, or Judaic, that's an outsider. J1, J2, outsider. I, which is Israel, outsider. G, which is Assyrian, outsider. E, of course, is Hamitic, outsider. R is Gomer, outsider. R is Gomer. The only one left is K, which is Tubal. The original population of Italy is the K, which is Tubal. Which to me, that's a significant population for the original population that was in Italy, because everybody else is an outsider, obviously, clearly an outsider. Gomer is R, E is Hamitic, I and J are Arpachshad. Clearly not Tubal, but K is Tubal. So it works out good. Okay, so we have here, for example, here, Europe, 95% of the European population is Semitic mitochondrial DNA. So that's L is not Semitic. M is not Semitic. The N is, the W and the X is, and I think these are. But 95% of the population of Europe is Semitic mitochondrial DNA. The Asiatic is basically not here. The L is Hamitic. And well, you're not going to be able to see it much here anyway. But H is the biggest population. That's the same thing in the Jewish population. H is big, U is big in the Jewish population. T is big, and I think J too as well. J as well. So that's about it. But K is still here in southern Italy, and K is still here in northern Italy, just not as much. Not quite as much. Okay, so here, this is to illustrate where the people that have the most Denisovan DNA are. Of course, as I was saying, is Papua New Guinea. Notice how this is the area of the M, both the M and the S, and they have one sample here, one sample here. But anyways, it's they have a lot of Denisovan DNA because, of course, they're both Hamitic and Japhethite, which is the K down here. The M and the S is basically the K. Of course, so you can see up here, Denisova Cave is way, way up here. Remember I was saying, they're trying to figure out how in the world the Denisovans got way up here. Well, the descendants of Nimrod from Mesopotamia, Shinar, of course, are all in this area here in Mongolia, which is north of China. In between Meshech and Magog down here is the Hamitic population of the descendants of Nimrod, which is, of course, mixed with the Japhethite population, the Eurasian population. So that's the reason why there is Denisovan way up here, because Denisovan is a mixture of both Hamitic and Japhethite DNA. So that settles that. That clears up that confusion, because people that have more Denisovan DNA are like it shows here in these areas here down south, where there's more Hamitic DNA and plenty of Japhethite or Asian DNA as well. So, and the people that don't have Denisovan DNA would be the cold color, which would be basically the Semitic populations. These are basically the Semitic population areas, which includes all the way up into Scandinavia, up in this area here, which is where Israel was exiled to. First, Israel was exiled to this area up here, and then they went up through this area here, around over here, up here, over to Germany, the lost tribes of Israel, or they're known as the lost tribes of Israel, as well as this way too, but it's mostly Judaic in this area here, which is Semitic, which is not Denisovan. So that explains that pretty well, as far as I can tell. And the other anomaly is Semitic, more Semitic or autosomal DNA in the area of America, and of course, the Hamitic population of the C paternal Y chromosome in this area. Of course, this is not very exhaustive as far as populations are. It's a sample here, a sample here, a sample here, a sample here. So it's not, a complete picture of that's just they're generalizations of where things are found, where people are found. This is the same thing, only it's the Denisovan and Neanderthal together. Again, the Denisovan is in this area here, and which is Papua New Guinea, which is the area of the K. See this dark area here is the K paternal Y chromosome. Of course, the Denisovan cave is way up here, but the people with more Denisovan DNA down here, but that's because the Denisovan population was a mixture of Hamitic, which is descendants of Cush, descendants of Nimrod, as well as Asian population, or Eurasian population, in this case Asian, and in this case Tubal, which is Japhethite, which is Eurasian. Okay, the hot spots would be the Neanderthal DNA, so Neanderthal DNA here. Neanderthal DNA here, which is Eurasian. You know, Neanderthal is basically Eurasian with, and of course, this would be less because it's Semitic population, as well as up in here be less as well, which are not as much Neanderthal. This map here I've been through quite a bit. I don't think I need to go through it too much here, but it's the C3 is missing. I mean the C3 in America is missing. It has C2, but if it had C3, there would be a huge signature brown. It would be a huge brown signature because C3 is in America. But what is in America is remarkable because it's the Mediterranean people and the indigenous American Indian population, indigenous population they're doing DNA tests. It always comes back Mediterranean. And look at here. It comes back. The B is in America. The E is in America. That's Mediterranean. The G is in America. That's Assyrian. That's Mediterranean. That's part of the Phoenician Mediterranean Sea peoples. The I, which is Israel in America. I2, Israel in America. J1, which is Arabic in Israel. J2, which is Judaic in America. T, which is the Javan Sea peoples, Mediterranean in America. The Q is already there. And the R1B, which is Mediterranean in America. And they're trying to figure out how the R1B got into America, and yet there's a huge signature of the T, which is the Javan Sea people of the Phoenicians in America as well. So that explains a lot there. So mitochondrial DNA, of course, the A. This is the red is the B. The A is the this purple color here. The A being the Semitic mitochondrial DNA in America, because Madai asked to marry the daughter of Shem. Madai is the Q, paternal Y chromosome. Madai is the Q. So when Madai went to America, Madai took the descendants of the daughter of Shem with him to America. And that's the reason why A is in America, because of Madai, asking to marry the daughter of Shem. And of course, A being a Semitic mitochondrial haplogroup, but the more Asiatic haplogroup. Now, the B is also Semitic in America, but the B is another story. And that story is of how, in the book of Ezra somewhere, people are insisting that Israel went to the Philippines. Turns out there is a Semitic, Middle Eastern Semitic, more Middle Eastern Semitic lineage, because there's like two separate lines. One is Asiatic Semitic, the other one is Middle Eastern Semitic. B is Middle Eastern Semitic because the book of Ezra, people insist that Israel went to the Philippines, and here in the Philippines, this area here, you see the B. Not only is the B there, the P is there, and the F, I believe, the F. So we have the F color here, the B and the P. But the B also made it to America, but probably, I'm guessing, by way of the Pacific Ocean is how they got to America, because it doesn't look like they went this way. But there might be something to the story of the Israelites going to the Philippines, for what it's worth. There is mitochondria, but there is no Y chromosomes left. There's no Semitic Y chromosomes. There's just the B, the P, and the F in Asia, or the area of the Philippines, and all the way to America. So this is interesting here because let's just say, for the fun of it, let's just say that J2 is Judaic, obviously, kind of obviously J2 is Judaic. This is J2, this is J2, J2, J2. So these would be people from the tribe of Judah, right? Let's just supposing J2 is Judah. Okay, then who would this J2M172 be? This J2M172 is probably the direct descendants of King David and Solomon, because that's one big lineage right there. These would be the rest of Judah. These would be Arabic in Israel, the rest of Arabic in Israel. And there's no I's in here. Where's the I? This is, I don't know who, this is Iran, by the way. So Iran is almost, well, it's half Semitic, but it's almost half, maybe a third Judaic and Israelite. Iran, so I repeat, Iran is almost half the descendants of Israel, or at least Abrahamic anyway. Maybe some of this is Arabic, 10% is Arabic, maybe this is Israelite, I don't know. J1, because J1 is both Israelite and Arabic, and or Hebrew, or just Hebrew in general. So, and we know about Gomer. We know his Javan. We know M35, 34, M35. That might be Canaan or somebody. We got F3. probably Assyria here, Aramean, Lydians, Assyrian, and some Elamites in Iran. But the majority, the largest population, of course, being Israel in Iran, which is interesting, you might say. Okay, this is X. This is mitochondrial DNA X. This is also found in America as well, probably because of the sea people that went to America. It's found in America as well. Javan, it looks like Javan sea people and such. I mean, that would be an interesting study right there. Find out, where the population of X mitochondrial lineages came from and went to and stuff like that. But it looks like basically Mediterranean sea people, and which is also found in America as well. It's one of those anomalies, you might say. See, you can see it right here. We have X in the area of the Levant, X2, and we have X in the area of the copper mines in the Americas. Oh, look at that. Look at that. So the Phoenicians, see, this is Syro-Phoenician right here. The Phoenicians reportedly were sailing ships all the way to America mining copper in this area here. And oops, look at that. Mitochondrial DNA of the X2 of the Phoenicians in America. Look at that. Isn't that interesting? Interesting. Okay, so that's very interesting there. Again, X over here in the Mediterranean, X over here in America. Now, could have been something else, but could have been because of the Phoenicians mining copper in the Great Lakes area. Could have been. So this is the haplogroups. This would be the Y chromosome haplogroups. Of course, which is Madai in America and the C3 in America. And of course, the R in Europe. And the I and the J. The J is the green. The I is the pink in Europe. Or the purple, whatever that is. This pink over here is C. The C, of course, is Nimrod descendants, Hamitic Nimrod descendants through Mongolia all the way to America, all the way to South America here. Okay, and the C in Australia, C in Polynesia as well. But not in Africa. The descendants of Nimrod went this way, they didn't go this way. And this purple color is Israel in Europe. That's pretty significant percentages of the population as well as the green, the J2, the J in those areas. Okay, this is the largest population in the world, is the O haplogroup. You can see it's all the way, China, all the way into Mongolia and Japan and such, all the way down Korea, all the way down into the Philippines, as well as the islands, Be the OY chromosome. Largest haplogroup in the world is Magog. L is Greek. See all the way from here. L, Thracians. Originally, the Thracians, Alexander the Great took it all the way to India. T, same thing, is all the way to India. And the Greek Sea people had trade with the Horn of Africa. Let's see. So we got Papua New Guinea. What do we got? This is the A, the B, the C, the D. This looks like mitochondrial. Yes, mitochondrial DNA, because it's the Z and the M and the G. Okay, be mitochondrial DNA. So yeah, this is the one where I look in the Philippines and see what's going on with the Philippines. You have the B, which is the brown color. The F, which is the blue and the brown color. And the P, where's the PP? Not here. Okay, I think it's on the other map. But this would be that would be the Semitic mitochondrial DNA in the area of the Philippines. Okay, this is basically showing Ashkenaz here, Riphath here, and Israel, lost tribes of Israel going up through here. This is Meshech in the north. Meshech went north through the Caspian Sea and Black Sea, went north, all the way up north. So another one. Let's see if I can study this a little bit. As long as I'm taking time to study. See if we can. Okay, we got brown is E, 1B, 1M, 180. Okay, you got the A and the B. Okay. These colors aren't very good, but showing the O's are the purples, the O's. The blues are the J, J1, J2. The greens are, Elamite. The H and the G, light green. Okay, that's just not very useful, I don't think. Anyway, this would be the C. It's probably the C haplogroup, Y chromosome haplogroup. The Q, remember, they said Madai was in Europe. That's the Q. The Q haplogroup in Europe, of course, not a huge population. It's like 4% here in these areas, but you can see it's still here in the area where Madai was in Europe, was said to have been in Europe, right here. Of course, some went this way, some went this way, probably when Ashkenaz came through here, or the Hun, Attila the Hun came through, or somebody just wiped everybody out or something, It's always the Y chromosome that suffers, whenever there's an incursion of some group of people or something like that. But there we have it, Madai in Europe. The Medes, the QY chromosome in Europe. That's how that got there. So, the G, of course, is the Assyrian. Now, the Assyrians, I didn't get a whole lot of chance to cover the Assyrians. But anytime, like I said, the Assyrians are in this area right here. But anytime where after they got done marauding and taking over the world or whatever they did, then they would run for the hills. Well, while somebody else came marauding through, the Assyrians, or the Arameans or the Elamites or somebody, the Medes, Persians, somebody else came through, and then they would have to scatter and run for the hills. So that's basically the result of that right there. But of course, G is one of the first civilizations early on, so they went far and wide, as you can see here. And of course, G is in the Judaic population has G almost, commonly in their population as well, which would be the Assyrians, and Nimrod as well. The descendants of Nimrod are partly Assyrian too. Where, of course, most of the descendants of Nimrod went this way, east, except that the Sumerian population, they're a little bit confused as to whether the Sumerian population was Semitic. They kind of think it was Semitic, Assyrian population, and later became Assyrian, which is Semitic. But remember, Nimrod is a Cushite or descendant son of Cush. So that's the reason for not only the features of some of the statues, but also, which will probably be the descendants of Nimrod, possibly some of the descendants of Nimrod, that would be featured in the Assyrian, Sumerian, pictographs or whatever they are, the statues. So that's why they kind of had curly hair, and some of the features that they have is because of the influence of Nimrod and his sons in the Assyrian population. But of course, most of the house of Nimrod was subdued for a while, and they went east. As we can see, they went all the way to the Americas. But we can see the extent of the Assyrians, which would be, I probably don't know the whole story here of what's going on with the Assyrian population either, but we can see the results of basically the first one of the first ancient civilizations that like to conquer the world or whatever. And you can see the extent of their travels. And I always hit the zoom in a little bit too late. But anyways, this is the area this is the pass going between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, going up into the area of the steppes or Europe, and of course Asia, which is the route that Magog took into Asia. It was probably up through here. The Medes went this way, or something like that. Basically, the same thing. Arphaxad, Elam, Asher, Aram, and Lud. 5 sons of Shem: Lud, Aram, Asher, Elam, Arpachshad. Okay, sons of Japheth or Javin, Tiraz, which is not here, Gomer, Togarma. Well, Togarma's Gomer's son. Madai, and Meshach, Tubal, and Magog. Put Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan would be the sons of Ham, of course. So this is not a very exhaustive map. This one is pretty good. It shows the shoreline of where the Persian Gulf used to be. These are all the ancient cities. This is the city of Ur here somewhere, Ur of the Chaldees. Eridu right there, Nimrod's Babel. Eridu. Okay. And yeah, so this is Ur of the Chaldees, where Abraham was raised, born, lived as well, and Terah, his father, was the sculptor for Nimrod, and then God told Abraham to get out of there, so he did. And he made Abraham a great nations. Great nations. Same thing here. Can't see it. It's not zooming in, but it's all the same thing. See, here we got the Javan Greeks, Lud, Lydia, which is Semitic, Hittites, which is Canaanite, Aram, which is Syria, Asher, which is Assyria. Madai, Medes, Elamites, Arpachshad. It's kind of a simple map, I guess. W is another Semitic mitochondrial haplogroup. The maternal line, one of the maternal lines is W. It's from the Semitic line. Not sure if this might be found in America too. I'm not sure about that. I have to reconfirm that if it's true. But it seems apparent here that they took the path following the mountain pass through the mountains here into Europe, into the steppe, and Europe, which could have been Madai, I guess, or somebody. Anyway, so this is the Philippines, right? So here we go. We have the B's, which is the blues. All the blues are the Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial DNAs. So all the blues and this kind of grayish color is Semitic. The F, which is the red, the reds are also Semitic, and the P, which is right here in this part of the Philippines here. It would be Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial DNA as opposed to Asiatic mitochondrial DNA from the descendants of the daughter of Shem that Madai asked to marry, which would be the Asiatic Semitic line. But this line that came to the Philippines, if it's true that the Israelites went to the Philippines, which some people insist, there's no remaining Y chromosome, but there is the Middle Eastern Semitic mitochondrial DNA here, the B, the F, and the P in the Philippines. Okay, this would be possibly the descendants of Put, which would be, well, I think Josephus calls them Phoenicians, the early first Phoenicians, descendants of Put, but they're basically North Africans. The M81s, North African Berbers. Probably descended from Put. Okay, this is the I. This is all of the lost tribes of Israel. When Israel was first exiled to Babylon, you can see Babylon right here. They were exiled up into this area here. I think they were exiled a couple of times. Were exiled into here. They went up through the pass this way. They possibly went this way, but a lot of people think they went through the pass this way into the steppe regions, over into this area here. Became the Slavs again, which Slav is basically the word where we get the word slave from. So they came out of Egypt as slaves, came into their land. God told them to behave or else they'll be kicked out of their land. They were kicked out of their land and became slaves again. Slavs went up into Norway, Sweden, Denmark, went all the way to England. And that's right, this area of Edinburgh, Scotland. That's where my paternal lineage goes all the way to Edinburgh, Scotland, right there. So that's the route they took. And this is mostly I2. This is mostly I1 up here. And I'm an I1 over here. So that's the lost tribes of Israel right there. It's all Semitic. And I have this to talk about the scientists and the atheists and the skeptics, how they like to be so perfect and look at every little detail, make sure they scrape up every little piece and they figure out how to do this kind of DNA from taking it from dirt and finding the DNA of whoever was there. And they missed the camel. I mean, they strained the net and they swallowed camel. And they're trying to figure out these haplogroups, and it would make a lot more sense if they would just go to known human history, known ancient civilizations, and realize that they are all the descendants of the grandsons and great-grandsons of Noah, which is what I just outlined and showed. And they just don't realize that they're, trying to strain a gnat, get every little detail right, and they're missing the whole camel. They're swallowing the camel. They're swallowing the big lie, trying to get science. This is their science right here is the gnat. They're straining the gnat. That's their science. And meanwhile, they swallow the camel, which is the, big air of naturalism, believing that, the universe can make itself, can form itself, direct itself, and program all the different life forms. They swallow the camel. They don't realize that they're missing the big picture of what the facts are showing. because they're too busy trying to strain a gnat, the little details, looking at the little details, and they miss the whole big picture. So that's the story of the skeptics. They miss the elephant in the room, you might say, or not looking at it, ignoring the elephant in the room. But anyways, that's about it. I guess I'm a little bit talked out, and hope to be having a discussion with David sometime. David Neff. He wants to have a discussion too. It's just a matter of finding a platform to do it. And here we go. We got Cheryl was here. We got somebody trying to spam the place, I guess. I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this stuff here. I guess might as well just do that. Anyway, otherwise I'll just keep coming back, putting nonsense in the thing, whatever. Anyway, God bless everybody, and take care. Stay close to God's word, and you won't be swallowing a camel. Trying to strain a gnat and swallow a camel. So God bless everybody. Spent plenty of time. All right. Take it easy.